everyone. Hope all are doing well. As you know that we are doing the reference part in poetry. I'm going to start a new poem today, that is Keeping Quiet. On your screen you can see the reference and the extract from the poem. It is written by Pablo Neruda. We all know that, so the poet's name is very important whenever we do the poem. The spelling of Pablo Neruda, Pabloneruda. So just write it once so that you will remember it forever. And then if you see the outline of the poem, it is written and it is giving the emphasis on the idea of introspection. So we all have to do the self introspection while doing any kind of actions. This is the poem that tells us that one should keep quiet and introspect, and that is how the title refers to. Secondly, it also gives emphasis and importance to the mutual understanding that humanity should have for more understanding, more mutual understanding that should be there for peace and harmony with nature and with one another. So let's begin the poem. The first particular stanza you can see on the screen. Now we will count to 12 and we will be a keep still for once on the face of the earth. Let's not speak any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. So here we can see that the poet is appealing everyone, and they're saying that should not speak any language. So there are 3 to 4 important questions. One is on the poet, that who is the poet? You all know that, Pablo Neruda. Then how long does the poet want to stay still? What does he hope to achieve by keeping quiet? And what does the poet mean by not moving the arms so much? So the poet wants to count up to 12 and stay still during the time we are counting to 12. Second answer is, by keeping quiet, the poet hopes that he will be able to live a fascinating moment and then realize the value of calm reflection and quiet introspection. The poet believes that by keeping quiet, we will be able to hear the voices of our conscience. That is very important idea. So, whenever man has used his arms, he has caused of harm to nature. So, poet here uses not to move any arms. So, arms here is the weapons or the nuclear weapons that actually damages the nature. So, these are important possible questions of stanza 1. Now stanza 2, it would be an exotic movement. What kind of movement? Exotic movement. Exotic word here means what? So this is an important idea, or the question which can be asked. Exotic means exciting or unusual idea that Pablo Neruda wanted or thought of. Wishes for the exotic movement where mankind will be free from greed, cruelty and harmful actions. Unnecessary rush and noise would be stopped for a while, and the poet wishes the noise of engines and machines should cease and peace be and tranquility be prevailed in the atmosphere. So these are important part of ideas in stanza 2. Then one more thing is there. What does TP refers to? TP refers to the moment of silence and quietness where peace and calm is there. Then we have the poet is addressing mankind who has time for quiet introspection. Who the poet speaking to? So to the complete mankind or the humanity. What would be the moment like? The moment is unusual, exotic, and tells about the sense of bonding and togetherness with each other. Now, why is Pablo Neruda against total inactivity? That's again one of the important ideas. So, against total inactivity because that would amount to death, and he has no association with that. Life is a continuous and ongoing process for him, and he says life shouldn't come to standstill under any circumstance. So, this is again very important. Why sadness is Pablo Neruda's worried about in his poem? Which sadness is? The sadness that Pablo Neruda is worried is of isolation, that the modern man is the victim of isolation. This sadness has become self-centered attitude of a modern man. He has sacrificed the needs of his emotional self in favor of materialism. This is very important. Now, one more question comes up here, that do you think that poet Pablo Neruda advocates total inactivity and death? So no is the answer, and there is a reason why. So he makes it clear that stillness should not be confused with inactivity. Stillness means halting and harmful activities, but not the giving halt to the productive activities. He also wants mankind to understand that life is about sprouting out of seeming dead surroundings. And see the stanza 3. Fisherman in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Very important lines, students. And the meaning of these lines are, in this moment of inactivity, the fisherman would not be catching fish. Hence, the whales in the sea will be safe. The idea is suggestive of the thought that human beings would not destroy nature. First important point. Second key point, the man who gathers salt will be able to tend to his wounded hand, for which he had no time earlier. Thus, both nature and humans will be able to recover from their wounds. This is very important idea discussed in stanza 3. In stanza 4, the poet says, those who prepare green wars. So green wars here indicates what? Green wars means wars against natures or environment. So those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivor, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. So the poet now speaks of those who wage wars against humanity or environment, wars of all kinds, including the use of chemicals or poisonous gases. He says that such men should stop this activity, shade their clothes stained with blood and humanity, put on new clothes and walk with brotherhood. The poet implies that war-torn world should be replaced by the good, peaceful brotherhood and harmonious atmosphere. Very important paragraph. Stanza 4 is very important as far as the examination is concerned. Then stanza 5. What I want should be not confused with total inactivity, that I have already discussed with you. So I want no truck with death. He says that life is meant to be lived and he does not want any association with death. His advice should not be confused with total inactivity. Stanza 6. Stanza 6 says that if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So the poet further advises in this stanza that people should stop being self-centered and selfish. For one moment, they should not think of keeping their lives moving, meeting their ends, or fulfilling their duties. That huge silence which will arise from such a moment will only serve to help the people. It will help then introspect and overcome their sadness and falling to understand themselves. People have been threatening themselves with death by their activities. This moment of silence will give them time to understand themselves better. Very important. So now this is again stanza 7 which I am reading for you. Perhaps the earth can teach us, and when everything seems death and later provides to be alive, now I will count up 12 and you will keep quiet and I will go. Very important part which has that idea that the poet feels that earth can enlighten us, guide us in the process of keeping quiet. He wants us to observe that there is some activity under apparent stillness. For instance, a seed appears to be dead, but huge fruit bearing trees are born for such seeds lying dead here and there. Finally, the poet thinks that he has said that he intended now he wants us to keep quiet while he is counting to 12 after which he will leave. So very important words are there. Single minded here means thinking about or focusing on only one thing. Now see this question: why does the poet want us to keep quiet? What does he want us to do for 1 second? What does he mean by not moving our arms? So very importantly, I have given you all the answers. Meditating, introspecting are the words for keeping quiet. The poet wants us to do something, remaining inactive for 1 second. Not moving arms means not using any kind of destructive methods to spoil the nature, and therefore let him not move his arms to harm others. How can suspension of activities help? Suspension of activities will give us time to introspect. So introspection is a key word that has been rolling in the complete poem of Pablo Neruda. What does the earth teach us? Very important question. So the earth teaches us that I have already, to enlighten us, it guides us in the process of keeping quiet. He wants us to observe that there is some activity under apparent stillness, like there is a seed which seems to be dead, but it actually bears a fruit bearing tree, and it gives birth to a tree which later on is very productive. So finally the poet thinks that it is very important to be quiet for some time. What does the poet mean to achieve by counting up to 12? So counting up to 12 is just a physical method to make ourselves restricted to silence. And what is the significance of keeping quiet? So significance is very importantly discussed over here, that we want to attain the tranquility and peace of mind, and do not want to be in rush with everyone always. So these are important points that has been discussed throughout in the poem, and I hope you have understood the idea with more details. For more details, please follow my previous notes which I have shared with you. Dear students, one more important thing about the poem I wanted to tell you is, please go through the poem and do the important short answer type questions. Ask me if you have any query in your doubt session. Thank you.